Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you give me a little thumbs up if narinig niyo ako? Okay. That's good. Welcome, everyone, to the third and final session of Python R, wherein we talk about a lot of topics related to Python. Now, I'm your host for today, Will Vincent Parone, and before we begin, short reminder as always, we do not tolerate any form of harassment towards other members. So kindly be mindful of the comments that you are giving towards the presenters and the other participants as well. Now, to begin, short introduction on Python PH. Python PH is a non-profit, volunteer-run organization that's dedicated to support and facilitate the growth of the community of Python programmers in the Philippines. It is comprised of Pythonistas from all skills levels and all age levels. So if you guys are looking for a community of people who are very interested in Python Philippines is the right place for you. And we have a lot of things planned as well. To begin, one of them is the Python R. We then share a lot of topics around Python, public trainings that are low cost, Python trainings that covers various topics. We will be having those in November 18, 25, and December 2. So kindly register. The link will be provided later. And also we have our meetup event. So the meeting committee is just planning our next Python meetup in November. So stay tuned so that we can get to see you guys. Okay? Last but not the least, for 2024, we are planning to redo PyCon. So we're going to start PyCon PH 2024 on February. More details to be followed, but we would like to have volunteers and speakers for that event. So if you're interested in speaking or if you're interested in volunteering in general, kindly join the links in the presentation. We will provide the links later in the messages as well so that you guys can enjoy the talk as well. Okay, so Python R. Python R is a 1 hour session wherein we talk a lot of interesting topics around Python. And as you can see, we don't have a direct theme. We just talk about the things about Python that fascinates us the most. And today, we're going to be talking about serverless Python using Zappa. And to introduce our very handsome speaker for today, Mr. Jeff Paredes is a software engineer and public speaker. And if I remember correctly, if you tag him on LinkedIn, kindly copy there with the hashtags Python or Python PH and PyCon PH 2024, you can have a chance to win a Starbucks voucher. So yeah, to talk about serverless Python using Zappa, I introduce to you Mr. Jeff Paredes. Introduce our handsome speaker.
Thanks, Will. Thank you so much. All right, guys. How's everyone? Tag me on LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn. The QR code will link you to my LinkedIn. You can also search my name or tag at I'm Jeff Paredes, and then just post anything. Post your thoughts, your features, and then add hashtag Python or Python PH and PyCon PH 2024. So I'll be giving you, and then I'll pick a random person to win a Starbucks voucher. All right, guys. I'll be sharing my screen. Also, my topic today is to deploy serverless and event-driven Python application using Zappa. I'll just share my screen. Here we go. Can you see it, guys? Thumbs up if you can see it. All right. Nice. So today's session we will deploy we will try to deploy a serverless and event-driven Python application with Zappa. So with this, we will experience the simplicity and power of Zappa, making serverless Python app development on a breeze using serverless tools like AWS Lambda. So what is Zappa? So Zappa is serverless. We can deploy Python apps with ease using Zappa's seamless integration with AWS Lambda and API Gateway. So first, I'll just give an introduction with Zappa. Zappa is like a framework made in Python that can deploy serverless architecture or serverless apps to AWS. And it's capable of scalability or scalable. So with serverless, you can enjoy infinite scaling and cost effective while eliminating server maintenance and downtime. And also capable of event-driven architecture. So you can build powerful Python applications that is event-driven to respond to triggers, events, schedules, and any events seamlessly. Sorry, let me just grab this. Okay. So why choose Zappa? So the challenges that Zappa solves is like using traditional web hosting. It faces challenges like scaling the servers, maintenance, and downtime. With Zappa, it will solve like that those issues. It also can help you remove the server or the server itself. So it will remove maintenance costs. So those are the benefits. So you can discover the advantages of serverless and event-driven application using serverless, using the features of Zappa. So Zappa's role is we will learn how to Zappa fills the gap by providing an elegant solution for Python app development and scaling. Okay, the power of Zappa. So you can unlock true potentials of serverless. So Python plus serverless, you can use that with Zappa. And of course, event-driven and seamless. It has seamless integration with AWS services such as Lambda and API Gateway, as well as you can also use scheduling events like CloudWatch events, S3 buckets, and many more. All right, take your Python apps to the next level with Zappa. So get all these features. So for today, what we will do is we will try to do a Zappa workflow. So first, I'm not going to develop, but I'm going to show you some nice GitHub repositories that you can use to deploy applications. So I'm going to show you some Python Flask web application that will host a web hosting or a front end. So we will create that application or download that application from GitHub with our preferred development environment and tools. The second, we will configure the Zappa. So we will configure the Zappa by setting up the routing, the events, and the site parameters, as well as the AWS configuration that we need in order to deploy this application. All right. And step 3 is we will deploy our application. Once everything is configured, we can use Zappa command line to deploy our applications or Python applications to AWS Lambda using Zappa's simple intuitive deployment commands. The second thing is you don't need to actually worry about this because by default, AWS Lambda, API Gateway, and many more are serverless. But with Zappa, you can utilize that capability by just one click or using just a simple commands. So Zappa automatically manages scaling and traffic and routing, allowing your apps to handle any workload. And what I like about Zappa is it also manage your deployment. So you can do deployment using a single command. You can also set up a deployment environment, such as, for example, you have a deployment for development when you are just testing or developing the apps. You can also have an environment called staging, wherein it is like, for example, public facing. This is more important. So you can separate the development environment and the staging development. And of course, you can also create production environment wherein it will be more important since some of your clients or some of the users will go connect to production environment. So there's a separation there of environment. So sit back and enjoy of the benefits of Zappa using serverless and event-driven Python applications. All right. So now, I hope that's not too fast. I'm going to share my Visual Studio Code here. I've created some step-by-step instruction on how to activate the Zappa. So first, I'm gonna show you the Zappa repository on GitHub. So I hope you can see the URL here. Uh, so here's the URL. I'm going to share it from to the chat, everyone. So here's the link for Zappa. So you can see all the instructions here, the documentations, all those uh, all those CLI command that you can use using Zappa. All are documented here, right? Now, so with Zappa, it's actually there's our requirements with Zappa. So tonight I'm going to show you to deploy application. We will have some requirements. First, with this, since we're going to deploy to AWS or Amazon Web Services, you have to have a AWS account. Creating an AWS account is free. You just need to add your credit card or something, credit card or debit card. You can use Maya, you can use Gcash to do that. And it's also free for like AWS serverless, AWS Lambda. There's a free cost in it. So for the first 12 months, it's free. Just make sure that you don't touch anything, such as, for example, creating a server or creating another thing, another resources other than the serverless resource. All right. So for those people, just context, what is serverless, right? So serverless is what they call this from the term itself, we are removing server from um use from the serverless. So for example, the traditional hosting we need a computer. It's either running on our on-site or on-prem on your room or somewhere in the Philippines, or you can also have a server in the cloud. However, the problem with servers in traditional development is that when you set up a server, it runs infinitely. So it runs every time. So you cannot, like, for example, if you have clients on December, you have traffic on December, you still need to have to run your server from January until November. So, and another thing is you need to set up the server configuration, the operating systems, and you also have to set up the network, making sure that networks are always on. Another thing is all those maintenance that will give you an hassle on servers or computers in general. But with serverless, for example, Amazon Web Services provides AWS Lambda. So what AWS Lambda is like a platform or as a service wherein you can deploy your Python application, or let's say you can upload your Python application, describe what function you want to invoke, and that Lambda function, you can trigger that function if there's an event. And what are the events available for to invoke a function in a Lambda serverless? So we in AWS, you can run Lambda functions using different events. So you can invoke your function using an API request. You can invoke a function using an scheduled uh, cron job or scheduled time. You can also run or invoke using different events, such as, for example, if a user uploaded a file in a storage, or if a user inserted a or an application inserted a item on database like DynamoDB or NoSQL database, it can be triggered. And so many more that you can use. You can also use simple queuing service, which is a queuing system for AWS. So for example, if I put something in a queue, I can make a Lambda function invoke and consume that a message from the queue and process those message, such as, for example, an order or a transactions. So that's how serverless and event-driven works. And how does the Lambda function works is that AWS like provides compute capacity on the cloud, and that whenever you invoke your Lambda function will run on those servers, but you're not actually paying for those servers. You're just paying for the time when your function invoke until it ends. So that's it. So that's serverless for you guys. So if you don't have the requirements here is that I need you to have Python 3, and I want you to install Zappa in your virtual environment. So first we're going to set up our Python virtual environment. I already have one here. So if you want to set up that, you can just use Python 3. I hope you can see my terminal here. Thumbs up if you do. So, okay, so you can see that. Okay, so if you wanna, the first thing we need to do is we need to set up a Python virtual environment, and then we can use Zappa to deploy we can use that virtual environment to run Zappa. All right. So to activate the virtual environment, you just have to type Python 3 dash m nv v nv, and then type the path to your virtual environment. For example, path virtual virtual env, and then it will create a virtual environment for us, and then we can use that virtual environment. So now we wanted to like run this virtual environment, and to do that, you can use this CLI command, source the virtual environment, bin, and activate. So that's it. That's easy, right? Okay. I've created already a virtual environment, and then I'm going to use that. So I have one here. Oops. Okay. Let me activate the virtual environment. All right. So I have next thing, let me just check. Okay. So the second requirement is to have an AWS account. So if you don't have an AWS account, you can try that later on another day. But you just need to go to console at AWS that AWS console that AWS.amazon.com, or basically you can just go to Amazon and create an account like this one. And then if you already have one, sign up. It's free for 12 months. Some of the resources are free. I already have a AWS account here. And I'm going to show you the first requirement is we need a user that has a programmatic access to AWS resources. And I've already created mine here. I've created Zappa, right? Okay, so I have a Zappa user account here. The next thing we do is we need to create a policy for Zappa to access some resources in AWS. And this is kind of a bit complicated, but if you want it fast, you can just go to, for example, go to permissions and add permissions here, and then just type these permissions with full access, so you don't need to worry about this. But the best approach here is that you create an AWS policy just to limit what Zappa can access. So here's the JSON file for that policy. You need to change this using your AWS account ID. And my account ID is right here, right? So these are the configuration, and I've created the policy sorry, there's a policies here, and then you can create a policy and then just copy paste the JSON file that I've shown you. I'm gonna upload this to Python PH GitHub, so no worries on that. So I already created one, um, and then create. You need to create the AWS credentials for this user, and to do that, just visit this link here. So to how to create the user and how to set up the permissions and the credentials. Or I'm going to get the access keys and secret keys specifically. Once you have the access keys, you need to also install AWS CLI. And to do that, you can just go to install AWS CLI and just follow the guide there. It's very easy. There's installation for Linux, Mac, and Windows to install the AWS CLI. Once you have that, just you need to configure the access keys by doing AWS configure. By default, it will use the profile default. Right? And then just enter the access key that you got from AWS, the secret key, and then the region that you want. I'm specifically using the Sydney region, but you can see the region here on the top of your AWS account. There's the regions here. I'm going to use Sydney, and the default format, it doesn't matter. You can use JSON here or table. Okay. Now that we have all the requirements needed here, let's go to, I have some nice Flask GitHub applications here that I found on GitHub. So let's try this basic Flask template. No, first, let's go to the basic Flask app. There you go. So I already downloaded this using this link. And I have the folder here, the basic. So once downloaded, extract it, and then let's go to that folder using your CLI. All right. Now we wanted to configure the Zappa, and by doing Zappa initialization. Okay. I'm going to show you how to configure the Zappa. I hope you can all see this. All right. So first, it's going to ask you for some configuration like environment. By default, let's go for development environment or dev. The second thing is it will ask you for the name of the packet. I'll just go with the default, and it will automatically detect your Flask application in that folder. And for this one, it says I have a class called routes.app. So what is routes? So I'm in this folder, and then there's routes here, which is the application. And then you add a dot, and then the app is the function to the Flask, or basically it's the Flask object or instance we have in routes. And you can see that here, there's an app here pointing to Flask. So this will be our function, a Flask function that the Lambda function will try to invoke. Do you want this to be globally? By default, no. So this is our configuration. Once you have that, there you go. We have the Zappa settings configuration for the development environment. Now the next thing is we're gonna deploy it. Yay! So let's type Zappa deploy. By default, it will detect your environment if it only has one, but I suggest you add the deployment environment here. So I'm going to use the dev settings. All right, it's now calling for the Python or Zappa is now calling to AWS. So what it's going to do is it will create a IAM permission or role to create the resources. The next thing is it will try to zip file the root folder. You can see it created this zip file here. The next thing is that it will create a CloudFormation template. What is CloudFormation? It's an AWS services platform as a service that is a infrastructure as a code. So it will try to write everything. So you can see it here. It will try to create this CloudFormation template, and then it will write up the resources, the Lambda function, the S3 bucket needed, and the configuration for that Lambda function. Oh, there you go. Nice one. It's completed now. And then it gave us a URL to an API. So this is our API now, or this is now our endpoint for this Repos Flask application. Let's try that. I'm going to copy this, then just maybe run it here. There you go. We've just run that Flask application from GitHub, and it's a Tiger homepage. There's so you can see this is Flask example of Flask app. So there's an folder here called meet.htp, and as a symbol, Tiger as a symbol. You want to check the source code for this, just go to this one. I just downloaded it thanks to Mac. So yeah, so let's analyze the Flask application there. So we have static files. He has some CSS and some image of like what we've seen earlier. And there's also HTML template that is being rendered by Flask application. So we have the index here, which is the photo of the tiger. There you go. And then we have the meat, the symbol, and many more. And this is the code, his code to the route. So you can see that he created a Flask application rendering the HTML file using the render underscore template. And it's easy as that. So now you've managed to actually create or deploy Flask application using Zappa. And it's now running serverless. What does that mean? So that means that when you try to run the URL, the Lambda function is invoked, and it will show you or run for you the Flask application. And you only pay for the time it runs. So for this thing, I feel like it loads pretty fast, so it runs as easy as that. All right. Everyone's in the same page as me. Everyone's good so far. Thumbs up if you do. All right, next, let's try another repository here. Let's try the cats API. So if you've been in the Python R before last year, I had a session about development in Flask, API development using Flask. And I've created a API in Flask by that has like a cats repository. So if you go to the Python PH GitHub repository and go to the Python R repo, you can see the sessions we had in the Python R last year. I'm going to use this a session for API development using Flask. So we have a Flask application here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy it using Zappa in AWS. But before you download that, just a reminder here, or just a note here that I've updated the app to not use a text file as a database. And why is that? So the reason why I don't want a state file inside the Lambda function is that the Lambda function just comes and go. It's like if you invoke a Lambda function, no persistent storage will be kept. So the text file here, I'm going to show you. It will try to read. So this is the session last year, and the storage that I use here is very simple. I just use a data.txt file to store data. And And with that, won't be able to work that on Lambda since the Lambda will invoke and that data will be deleted. All right. So what I did is I've used DynamoDB to store our data. So what is DynamoDB? So DynamoDB is a NoSQL um, and a serverless database provided by Amazon. And you can store as many as you want here, and it's serverless. So you only pay for the storage and runtime or call time that you do. So here I modified here to access to the DynamoDB. So first thing first, I need a DynamoDB table in AWS. And I believe I already created one, but let's try creating it again. So if you're in the AWS, you can just go to services and search DynamoDB here. There you go. Let's leave this side. All right. So let's create a table here by clicking this. I'm going to call this cats table. And you don't need to worry about this. There's other sessions about learning DynamoDB, but I'm just going to use our main primary partition key or primary key here, the name of the cat. Let's create a table. Now I have cats table. Let's copy that and place a table name here. Then you can use Bottletree. So Bottletree is a Python wrapper for AWS services, and you can use this in Python to access AWS resources. So this is very easy. Just call Bottletree and that resource using the resource itself, DynamoDB, and then we create or access the table by specifying the table name. All right. First thing first, this Flask application, it has an endpoint called /cat with a post method, HTTP method that will try to create a cat for us. It will request or wait for a body data that contains a name of the cat, the type of the cat, and the color of the cat. And we can use this function to insert that record into a DynamoDB table database. And after that, it will, if it's successful, it will say the record created successfully. If not, request is failed. Okay, let's try this repository here. Yeah, I already downloaded this, so I'm just going to the cats folder. And you can see these are the files. Okay. So first thing first, oh, I already have a Zappa settings here. So I can skip the Zappa init part and then just run the Zappa deploy. But it's the same configuration. You can see it here, right? Let's try to deploy this application. Any questions so far in the chats? So you can see it's uploading our application. It's also creating a scheduled event to check if our Lambda function is running as expected. And it will try to run the Lambda function every 4 minutes to keep our Lambda function active. Nice, we have an endpoint here. Do you want me to share this to you guys? I'll place it in the chat here. And then let's try to access this endpoint. I have a Postman here. Let's create a, so this is a Postman library or extension for Visual Studio Code. You can use that to send HTTP requests. So this is our endpoint here. And to create the cat, we're going to use post. And I've shown you earlier, the endpoint is /cat. It will expect for a JSON object here with name of the cat. I have a cat called Mochi, so I'll create Mochi first. Mochi's color is his like cream, and Mochi is a Persian cat, right? So I hope this works. So we have /cat here as described on the Flask application here. The method is post, and we have data here. Let's try that one. Sorry. Oh, okay. So the status now is it's now, oops, sorry. Where is that? There we go. The status returned okay. You can see it here, and it created the record successfully. So let's try another one. Do you want me to also, or just access the link and you can add your cats in here? I'll try to create Luna. If you have one, I'll just post it in the chat. I'll try to create that. So Luna, let's say Luna is black, and Luna's type, I'll say cute. There we go. We have another cat here. What's the name of your cat, guys? Do you have some cats in your home? Let me know. I'll add your cat here. Um, we have Katsu. What's Katsu's color? I'll say super cute. Katsu is super cute. And Katsu is orange. All right, there's Katsu. Mint. What's Mint's color? Then let's say he's a cat or she's a cat. I'll say white. I don't know. Gray. Okay. And then Odessa. What's Odessa's color? I'm going to use Odessa is white. Okay, thanks. So I'll try to use a cat image here so it looks cool. So there you go. Type is cat. And then Nori is gray. There you go. There's your cat here. All right. So we've created a lot of cats here. Okay, next is we going to check how to get the name of the cat. So I created an endpoint here in Flask that has /cat/ the name of the cat. We can use this endpoint to get the data in the DynamoDB just using this snippet, this code, and it will return a JSON object of that data. Okay, let's try that one. We have cat, and then let's say Odessa. Oh, can you move this now? All right, let's try to access Odessa. Oops, not found. I'm sorry, it was get request. So you can see it's using this method. Cat not found. Maybe it was case sensitive. There you go. It was case sensitive. So we found Odessa. How about Mint? Cat not found. And maybe this is another case sensitive thing, or maybe I typed Mint wrong. Let's say Nori. Let's try to look for Nori. There we go. We have Nori, and then cannot find Mint. Maybe I type it wrong. Katsu. Sorry, I forgot the baby rat. There you go. We found Katsu, which is an orange cat, and he's super cute. Yeah, maybe I typed Mint wrong. All right. So you can see we just deployed a Flask application that has like an ability to create an API, or we've created an API and then access a DynamoDB database, right? So we found all the cats here, but I also have like a cats endpoint here where it will list down all the cats that we've created. Just drag here. There you go. So we have, oh, it's MIT. Sorry about that. You have Nori, Luna, my cat Mochi, Adasa, and Katsu. What else? There you go, guys. We've just created I've just shown you how to use Flask, create a database in AWS, which is DynamoDB. It's very serverless. And we have a Flask application here that utilizes DynamoDB to store data, get data. So that's it. And we've deployed it using Zappa. So, right. Another thing that I want to show you guys is what I like about Zappa is that you can create, you can undeploy or manage the version in Zappa. I'm going to show you how to do that. So let me just go to my environment again. Oops. There we go. That's all right. So if you want to create another environment, for example, testing, UAT, or staging in production, you can deploy another and separate environment from your development just by using Zappa deploy, or we should actually create first in configuration. Let's say test. Oh, sorry. Let's sorry, I think I'm doing it wrong. Let's go to the Zappa's documentation. So if you want to create another environment, we can use, anyways, we're running out of time here. So maybe I could show you instead, what I can show you instead is I can show you how to undeploy the application. So one thing you need to think about is when using a serverless, or if you have an AWS account, um, if you deploy your application, make sure that you remove your resources so it doesn't get invoked every time, or someone invoke it for you, so you won't incur costs. But in API Gateway, DynamoDB, AWS Lambda, it's free for 12 months. But if you hit the limit, that might give you some costs. So to deploy your application, you can just use Zappa and deploy. So you can see it will try to destroy the resources that we have in AWS Gateway, such as the API, the Lambda function, the S3 bucket, and the cloud formation that it created from in AWS. So it's just waiting for the stack to be deleted. While waiting for that, we can check the repository of Zappa here. There's a bunch of things that you can see here. You can use, you can also use Zappa tail. With this, you can see the logs of the Lambda functions that's trying to invoke. There you go. The Lambda function is now deleted and the resources are now deleted. All right, guys. I think it's time for a Q&A. If you have questions, please just be reminded I'm not a subject matter expert for Zappa, but I can still answer your questions if you have. It is a API in general, web development, serverless, and deployments. All right, guys. I hope that's very helpful. Will?
Hello, mic check, mic check. Hello, mic check, mic check. Can
Yep.
you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, wait. Sorry, let me just change the screen again. All right. Can you see me now?
Yep, we can see the screen.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for that wonderful talk. Um, Now is the time for any of you guys to ask your questions. Probably I'll start habang naghihintay pa sila. So, with regards to serverless as a whole, given that that is the idea, that is the topic we're talking about, what are like the downsides of using Zappa that the users have to consider?
All right. I think one of the downside of Zappa for user is that there are some requirements that cannot be resolved by Zappa itself. So for example, Zappa has like a very easy and seamlessly integration with AWS, and it has like a very fast deployment process to AWS, but it currently supports some of the resources or little resources as of the moment. That's why it's simple. So if you want to create like a different resources, like if you do want to do, let's say, a relational database, create a machine learning, um, create, let's say, what do you call this? Let's say you can create a Redis database or other AWS resources. Some of those are not supported yet with Zappa. Another thing is definitely the cloud compatibility. As of the moment, I've shown you AWS. I'm not sure if they have a supported version for Google Cloud Platform or if they have a supported version for other cloud services as well. So I think that's one of the main consideration of using Zappa. But just want to tell everyone that Zappa is being used in production. It's being used by large companies as of the moment. And I can vouch you for that because I've worked for large companies that using Zappa.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question that pops into my mind, since we're already talking about cloud compatibility. No, no. Since we're talking about cloud in general, why why can't I just simply instead of like using server instead of using serverless,
Mm.
why can't I just run a server and create a simple web server? Why should I use this instead of just simply building a web server, running it on an EC2
In
instance?
the server. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So, yeah. So, yun, ang main difference is what I like about serverless is you don't need to worry about setting up the server itself, and you don't need to worry about the maintenance of the setting up the server. So that's traditional. Serverless is now, I say, is the new web development trend. Another thing is, for example, if you're a, let's say, um a Christmas, or you have an event that only happens every November or every December, you don't want your servers, like for example, if you have a company, you will purchase a server, right? You'll purchase a server and then you have to maintain those servers for the whole year. But your business, for example, if your business only runs on December, then you can use serverless to run your servers on December's only, and you will only need to pay invocation on December, so you don't need to worry about purchasing servers, running servers for the whole year. With serverless, you just pay for what you use.
Yes, the typical serverless benefits. Okay,
Tama.
Ariel from YouTube asks, is it possible to use Zappa with other frameworks like let's say Django, Flask, and would you recommend using frameworks with serverless as well?
I would say so. So we've seen Flask, a web application framework to deploy what they call this, um WSGI application. Is that even the term? Yeah, WSGI web applications. But I'm not a subject matter expert here, but I believe it's specifically designed for Python applications. But not again, not limited to WSGI web applications. So yeah, I think you can use Django here. Just need to declare the right environment on how to set up the functions in Django. I'm not sure about Node.js though.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any other questions? Does the audience have any other questions? Well, I guess the audience are still waiting. I would like to ask na Len din, habang naghihintay tayo sa comments nila, um, with regards to Zappa, nakalimutan ko yung question ko. Teka.
Sige, compose mo
Ayun,
muna.
okay, naalala ko na, thank you. So, nakita ko kasi, dun sa pag-setup mo, parang ang dami niyang configurations na ginagawa. So like, may mga, basta ang daming configurations. Hindi ba may risk na magiging masyadong komplikado yung application na ginagawa mo with Zappa? And if ever, how can you prevent overcomplicating your applications if you're using Zappa?
Well, I would say if you follow the well-architectured pattern, for example, the Amazon well-architectured pattern, you have to make sure that you have like enough documentation to document every configuration that you have. Another thing is I just want to inform everyone that the configuration that we have on the first setup is more of like creating an AWS account, creating the permission. So it's like a one-time thing. And then after that, you can easily seamlessly deploy application using using the identity and access management, which is the IAM user in AWS. Once you've configured that, you can use those credentials and deploy as many as possible, as many applications as possible if you want. I would say it's just a one-time thing. Also there's also some well-architectured best approach that you can use, such as like tagging your resources in AWS, so you can make sure that all your resources are tagged into a specific name, so you can like filter it, check who's invoking a lot, who's what resources is more expensive than the other. So again, just creating a playbook and a game book will help you attain operational excellency as a in well architecture framework.
Yeah, documentation, of course, every dev needs that, pero for some reason, not everyone writes devs, diba? Okay, so does anyone else have any other questions? Going once, going twice. I guess if anyone doesn't have any questions, if you enjoyed Python or if may feedback kayo, kindly let us know. Andito yung feedback form sa link and i-send na lang din namin siya. You can also scan the QR code to provide us with feedback. And with that said, we have upcoming events. So today is November 3. So we have our public training from November 18 to December 2. So kindly join us as we embark on a lot of the fundamentals of Python. And we have our meetup events for this month. Last but not the least, we also have our PyCon. So if you want to volunteer or if you want to be one of our speakers, kindly sign up. We would love to have you there with us. Okay? On the new QR code. So with that said, thank you. And actually, hindi see you on our next session. So see you on our next